But the cork is 100% metal, and I like this type of cork. I believe they are much more sealing. But how are you, dear friends of Talking About Whiskey, your favorite whiskey channel? My name is Eduardo, and here we are in Madrid, the capital of Spain, to make a new interesting video about whiskey. Today, about Irish whiskey. We have Irish whiskey very much forgotten, not for any particular reason, but for me, because personally, it is a type of whiskey that does not appeal to me at all. In other words, it is a whiskey that does not have a flavor profile that I personally like. I can't find brands that really interest me, except for Waterford, a very recent brand that is doing truly interesting things. All the old ones, the Bushmills, the Jamies, I don't like at all. In other words, I find that the whiskey flavor profile does not attract me at all. They are very dry and very astringent, and they don't suit me. And it is a type of whiskey that I don't know what the reason is, as it is clearly this that I am mentioning, but in general, it does not encourage me to explore it further. In other words, Irish whiskey, considering that they are the pioneers, as Bushmills recalls that the first distillery in history was established in the 1600s, is a true commercial marvel. However, I don't know why, just like with Japanese whiskey, bourbon, or even Spanish whiskey, it makes me not want to seek out Irish whiskey at all. But well, every now and then I do buy one, and recently I bought this one, which is Writer's Tears, like the tears of the Irish writer Double Oak. Now I'll explain a bit about what this whiskey is all about. So, the expression is Double Oak. This is at 46% alcohol. I don't know if it has colorants, cold filtering, I have no idea. And this is from a family, the Walsh family, who also have another whiskey called the Irishman, which is a single malt, if I'm not mistaken. And this one is not a single malt. It is a single from the same distillery, but it is a blend of single pot still and single malt. What does this mean? The Irish, and apart from having, if I'm not mistaken, surely triple distillation and so on, we'll look into that now, which is another characteristic of Irish whiskey. The Irish spent 2 centuries trying to differentiate themselves from Scotch whiskey and pay less taxes. What they did was mix malted barley, that is, germinated barley, with non-germinated barley in the mash, in that paste they make. So what happens is that you can no longer call it single malt because it is no longer 100% malted barley, so they call it single pot style. Well, since this is a blend of those 2 malts, they simply call it White Tears, Double Oak, Irish whiskey, period, and they leave it at that. It is double-aged in American oak and French cognac barrels. It is 46% French oak, a powerful whiskey. One very strange thing about it, look, I don't know, I mean, it doesn't matter to you, but the cap is 100% metal, which I like. I think this type of caps are much more sealing than cork caps. But it caught my attention, didn't it? A bottle that costs approximately, I think I bought this for $40 or something like that. Now I've seen it for $50, but it catches my attention that a bottle, let's say, that boasts of being a whiskey brand that prides itself on being a little premium would use this cork. I personally prefer it because there you know that nothing escapes. I carry a plastic sealant and off I go. What I told you, it says here it's aged in American oak, Bourbon, Kentucky, bourbon with French cognac from the cognac region. It doesn't tell us first use, second. In short, it says nothing and claims that it is sweet, vanilla, I don't know what it gives us here, grapes, citrus, mandarins, it says here. Well, it gives a bit of a series of notes. It doesn't mention anything about filtering or anything, and simply that it is a product of Ireland, and the box tells the same story, really just that it is a product of Ireland from the Walsh distillery, which is actually owned by Wall Street. It's really strange, isn't it? It has a look, and then it says here, Writer's Tears. Is one, the packaging, as they say now, is unusual. It has a strange shape. Well, this is the map, there is the whiskey, cooking doesn't matter, but the aromas and notes are what I value. Alright, let's start pouring it, and let's see what we find in this Walsh whiskey of Writer's Tears. Yes, because being a writer is a really tough thing. Sitting down to write and creating something that people will read and actually like is incredibly challenging. I think it's one of the most difficult professions in the world, because if someone tells you to make that chair, you make the chair, whether it's good or bad. But when you write a book, you have no idea if it will be liked or not. It's a very strange thing. Honestly, I don't like any of them. Millions and millions of books are published each year around the world. Well, hundreds of thousands or thousands, and there are really very few that are successful. Well, the color, to be honest, is a color. I don't know if it had any coloring. I have no idea. It doesn't say anything on the website. The color is quite good. As we would say, something like peach, Amontillado wine. That's about the range. It varies. It doesn't specify an age, so it's not to be assumed that this whiskey, let's see. Waterford is a 3-year-old, 4-year-old whiskey and costs $80-90, but it is a whiskey of very high quality. I imagine this will be the same, 3, 4, or 5 years, no more, but let's see what level this has. Let's take a look. It moves, well, with relative lightness in the glass. Let's see a bit on the nose what we find in this writer's tears. Well, yes indeed, as the description mentioned, a little, the nose is quite citrusy. It's very noticeable. I mean, there is a strong presence of ex-bourbon with vanilla and sweetness. But it is also true that there is a winey note, a fresher note, more characteristic of cognac, probably from those other barrels. In any case, the main influence from my point of view is that of the bourbon. That is, the note of cognac or the note of another type of barrel is perceived, but not as much. In my opinion, the nose is very pleasant. It is 46% with a very, very, very good alcohol integration, very pleasant, very well done. And everything really looks good and all that. The nose is truly pleasant, yes, I mean sweet, citrusy and cookie-like. The cereal is quite noticeable. In my opinion, the proportion of unmalted barley shouldn't be very high. I also don't know the distillations they use. You know that the Irish are characterized by their triple distillation, while in Scotland, in the Highlands, it is usually a double distillation, and in Speyside as well. In the Lowlands, there is also a triple distillation, it seems to me. But it is rare for them to do triple distillation in Scotland, although the triple distillation aspect is not very relevant because it depends a lot on how you distill. If you do 3 very short, very quick distillations with very small stills, then the whiskey will be more harsh, drier and more astringent than milk, and very little refined. Now if you use 2 stills, that is, with 2 distillations, with long stills, slow distillations, etc., then the result will be completely different. It will be much smoother, much finer. It is very oxygenated and very fresh. There are also some earthy notes. It is very mineral, tremendously mineral. I find it very interesting when I say mineral. I mean earth, I mean minerality. Noticing things like clays, that kind of notes, really goes in that direction. It is super fresh on the nose. The truth is that the nose of this whiskey is very, very, very pleasant. Well, let's get to the moment of truth. Let's see how it tastes. Let's add a little water and see what we find with this whiskey, which I must say, it's been a long time since I've tried Irish whiskey. Cheers. Well, look, it is frankly pleasant, but yes, it is true that the influence of cognac is clearly perceived in this whiskey. 2009. You note that there is something more than the ex-bourbon. The alcoholic integration is very good. It's not at all, let's say, it's not dry and not astringent like the Irish battle whiskies, which in my opinion are quite bad in their most basic expressions. But it's not a whiskey that seems anything special to me. It feels a bit like with brands that are very overrated, or brands that I consider very overrated. Sometimes it happens with Glenal, which comes to my mind, that for me are whiskies that are not really well finished. They are truly, as I would say, quite rough, right? That is to say, they have something in the finish, they have something in the ending that is very abrupt. They are not refined, they are not delicate. However, there are whiskies that are well made, but it seems to me that they are not entirely well made. I feel similarly about this one. It seems to me like a whiskey that isn't worth $40 or $50, not even close. I can tell you that. I'd much rather have a Glenmorangie and 10 bottles of $25 or $30 than this, which seems infinitely better as a whiskey. In the end, there is a warmth. The notes are very simple, a lot of wood, a lot of cereal, a bit of that cognac perception, but it's a whiskey with a very rough finish, to put it one way. I don't like it too much. I mean, it's not a bad whiskey. It's not a whiskey that makes you say, wow, but it's definitely a whiskey I won't buy again. And for the price it has, no way. If it's worth more than the $50 I've seen, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. No way. I would rather go for something a little more. If you want to buy a really good groundbreaking whiskey, as they say now, in a Snoopy style, in a tacky way, then spend a little more and get a Waterford and buy a truly spectacular whiskey from Ireland, because this, make no mistake, is also very recent. This distillery has been around for very little time. I saw it before starting the video. If I'm not mistaken, this is from the year 1999. It is 25 years old, so it's not something too unusual. I mean, it could already be 25 years old. Well, the truth is that it's not very new, but it's not very old either. However, if it could be 25 years old, man, you could have done something a bit more refined. From my point of view, it's not a whiskey that I find particularly appealing, as I mentioned. Let's see, it's fine. Well, perhaps the ending is... It's good, mate, but for mixing with Red Bull, no, I don't recommend it at all, I'm sorry, but a whiskey that aims to be more than it is, which is nothing more than a supermarket shelf whiskey, with all due respect, from Carrefour or Hypercore in Spain for $20, it shouldn't be worth more. Well, if you find it at that price, great, but definitely not $40 or $50. In the end, a bit disappointed. It's not something that I found to be great, but it is what it is. Lately, we haven't been very sharp, to be honest. It's true that we are tasting whiskies that I haven't been enjoying too much, but well, it is what it is. Well, gentlemen, that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it and had fun. Remember, please, to always drink in moderation. Be very happy with what matters most, and eat, subscribe to the channel that supports us a lot. You know, if you hit the bell and all those things. Take care, be happy. See you soon. Goodbye.